Welcome to Starbound, where every star tells a story. Join us to see how the Kavari onslaught reacts when faced with Earth's Mothership. Let's get into the story. Admiral Hayes stared at the tactical display, the weariness etched on his face deeper than any wrinkle. Red icons depicting Kavari attacks pulsed relentlessly across the sectors surrounding Earth's domain. Each flash was a colony gone silent, a transmission cut mid-scream. His hands clenched into fists, the frustration and anger threatening to consume him. They lacked the forces to respond everywhere. The once distant front lines were collapsing inward, threatening to consume humanity's core worlds themselves. "They'll bleed us slowly," General Pierce murmured beside him, his gravelly voice echoing the despair gripping the command center. "Like hunters exhausting their prey. We can't stretch our forces any thinner, Admiral." "Not if we change the game," Hayes said, more to himself than the general. A flicker of the old fire ignited in his eyes, the stubborn spark that had seen him through decades of service. His gaze shifted from the relentless red tide of the tactical map to a small, unassuming monitor tucked into a corner. "Comms, open a channel. Project Eyes of Earth." The tactical display flickered, replaced with a live feed from a high-orbit satellite circling a seemingly innocuous planet. Lush, green continents swirled amidst vast oceans. For a moment, the bridge crew could forget the horrors unfolding light years away. This was Earth. This was the world worth dying for. A world the Kavari had never seen up close. "Sir, the channel is secure, but who are we transmitting to?" Hayes ignored the comms officer's confusion. It was time to raise the stakes, to force the Kavari's hand. "Attention! Kavari High Command!" His voice boomed through the bridge, amplified outward to a predatory species blissfully unaware their prey had teeth. "This is Admiral Joshua Hayes. Every world you destroy, every civilian you butcher, pulls us closer to you." He gestured towards Earth, spinning peacefully on the screen. "That blue marble? You never set foot on it, but it burns brighter in your nightmares than any star. Because deep down you know what we are. We are the species that traveled across the void to find you. You've underestimated us, treated us like sheep to be slaughtered. Well, the flock has shown its wolf teeth. And this is our message." Hayes paused, a deadly silence filling the bridge before he spat out the words. "You want war? We'll bring it to you." Aboard the Mothership Valkyrie, the atmosphere crackled with barely contained tension. It wasn't the sleek warship envisioned in the holograms. There were no massive weapon arrays, no swarms of fighters. The ship was utilitarian, designed for a singular, desperate purpose. In its belly, it carried a monstrous payload, the reason behind its stealthy mission into the heart of Kavari space. Captain Lainea Naves knew the whispers among her crew. Suicide run, they called it. And perhaps they were right. But they had all volunteered for this mission, knowing the risks. Intelligence painted a grim picture. The Kavari homeworld defenses were minimal, lulled into complacency by their distant victories. Getting in would be the easy part. Getting out? And that was written in the blood of countless humans on distant frontier worlds. Eyes flicked to the countdown clock, its merciless red glow a constant reminder of the task ahead. Once the Valkyrie dropped out of hyperspace, the Kavari would swarm, desperate to protect their precious core world. It fell to Naves and her relatively small crew to carve a path for Admiral Hayes' message, a broadcast that would shake the Kavari leadership. They had to buy time, and if their luck ran out, they'd pay the ultimate price. "Captain," the navigator's voice cut through the quiet bridge. "Hyperspace tunnel forming. Exit point in T-minus 5 minutes. Naves braced herself. "Steady as she goes, Lieutenant. Once we hit, it'll be all hands to battle stations." 5 minutes stretched into an eternity. The crew shared a silent camaraderie born of impending doom, a quiet defiance burning in their eyes. Then, the universe stuttered, space warped, reality tearing open to spit them out light years from home, directly above a lush, bustling planet, the Kavari homeworld. Immediately, the bridge erupted into shouts. The Kavari long-range sensors had picked up the Valkyrie before coming out of hyperspace. "Multiple contacts incoming! Signature matches! Kavari interceptors!" Sensors painted an emerging wave of hostiles, sleek and predatory, clawing their way towards the Valkyrie. The ship, never designed for frontline combat, shivered as energy shields powered up. "Helm, evasive maneuvers, maximum power!" Naves barked. "Weapons, target those interceptors! Comms, get ready to transmit at all frequencies! We have to clear a path!" Her voice was steady, betraying none of the fear twisting in her gut. This was it. The moment their desperate gamble would either succeed or burn out in spectacular failure. Kavari interceptors surged towards the Valkyrie like a wave of razor-toothed fish. The human ship danced and juked, its bulk defying the frantic maneuvers. Lasers lashed out, carving fiery trails through the void. Plumes of superheated debris marked the short, violent lives of several Kavari attackers, but more continued to flood from hidden stations across the planet below. "Incoming missile swarm!" the sensor officer yelled. A cold fist squeezed Nave's heart. Missiles were the true danger, too smart for evasive action alone. "Brace for impact! Deploy countermeasures!" The Valkyrie unleashed a storm of flares and electronic chaff in a desperate hope to confuse the incoming swarm. Explosions rocked the ship. Scouts and the wail of alarms underscored the chaos. But the Valkyrie held, badly scarred, shields flickering dangerously but still in the fight. "Admiral Hayes' message is ready, ma'am," comms reported. "And let's make sure those bastards hear it," Naves replied, the grim satisfaction in her voice outweighing the fear. "Broadcast on all channels. Let the whole damn Kavari system know why we're here." The bridge fell silent as Admiral Hayes' voice, steady and resonant, sliced through the tension and out into the void. His defiant message, a calculated gamble delivered on the back of raw courage, carried Earth's rage and its terrifying resolve across the system. Naves watched the sensor display as the transmission rippled outward. Kavari interceptors faltered, as if struck by the force of humanity's fury. Their initial assault slowed, momentarily disoriented. She had no illusions. This was a temporary respite, bought with the blood of her crew. "Ma'am?" The navigator's shout was filled with disbelief. "Hyperspace signatures! The Kavari main fleet, they're changing course, converging on our position!" A collective breath hitched on the bridge. They had done it. Hayes' message had driven a wedge of hesitation deep into the heart of the Kavari war machine. They had expected a weakened, demoralized Earth that could barely defend itself, not this insane act of audacity. Panic was a luxury Captain Naves couldn't afford. The Kavari fleet, a monstrous tide of warships, would soon be upon them. Their reprieve was brutally short. She had to make every second count. "Engineering!" she snapped into the comm. "I need more power. Divert everything non-essential to the main drive." A shiver ran through the Valkyrie as systems went dark. Power flickered and hummed as the ship's heart pushed past its intended limits. Hi, sorry to interrupt the story, but a lot of you who are listening right now aren't actually subscribed. It's completely free and allows our stories to pop up on your feed much more often. If you're enjoying the story, please consider clicking the subscribe button underneath the video right now. Back to the story. "Weapons, prepare targeting solutions," she continued, watching the Kavari fleet draw closer. An impossible calculation ran through her mind. They were drastically outgunned. The best they could hope for was one, maybe two good shots before being torn apart. "Targeting acquired," the weapons officer reported, tension taut in his voice. "The weapon is prepped and ready, Captain, but—" He hesitated. "But what, Lieutenant?" Naves demanded, the pounding in her chest mirroring the beat of the Valkyrie's overtaxed engines. "It's not designed for starships, ma'am. Even a direct hit won't take out the capital ships." His words confirmed what Naves had already feared. Their doomsday weapon, the Earth's hidden ace, was not the fleet breaker they desperately needed. The revelation washed over her like icy water. They were doomed. Yet as she stared at the advancing Kavari armada, a twisted sense of purpose ignited in her veins. They wouldn't win, but by God, they'd be remembered. "New target," she ordered, her voice shockingly calm. Below, the Kavari homeworld swelled to fill the viewport, its lush continent swirling beneath pristine orbital defenses. "The planet, Lieutenant. Aim for the core." Murmurs rippled through the bridge. Even amidst the chaos, the order was chilling. Genocide wasn't in the human doctrine, but they'd been pushed to the precipice, teetering on the edge of extinction. Ma'am? The comms officer stuttered, aghast. That's billions of civilians. Naves met his eyes, her own blazing. I know. But we don't fire that weapon, it'll be billions more. Earth, every colony, every human, gone! Her voice broke just slightly. Tell the Kavari! This is our answer. A wave of grim resignation washed over the bridge. Every officer, each enlisted crew member understood the grim necessity. Orders were relayed. The countdown initiated. The Kavari, momentarily stalled by Admiral Hayes' ultimatum, surged forward again. Their attack formations tightened, a noose closing around the defiant human ship. Captain, they're launching fighters! Sensor officer's shout cut through the tense silence. Naves watched the tactical display. Icons representing hostile fighters swarmed toward them like angry hornets. It was the beginning of the end. Those fighters would cripple the Valkyrie before the planet-cracking weapon could launch. Helm, get us into the atmosphere, she barked, a last-ditch plan taking shape in her mind. Max acceleration, straight for the surface. The Valkyrie groaned, her stressed frame protesting the sudden maneuver. Naves ignored the flickering lights and blaring alarms. If they could breach the atmosphere, the heavier planetary defense weapons would come into focus. A potential distraction to buy time, and perhaps a way to take a few more Kavari with them. Captain, it's no use. Lieutenant Torres, the navigator, spoke with mournful certainty. The fighters are too fast, our shields are collapsing, we'll never make it. Naves knew he was right, but desperation drove her forward. Just a little further, Lieutenant. A little further. Her eyes flicked to the countdown timer. Just a few more minutes, that's all they needed. Then they could plunge into fiery oblivion, their sacrifice echoing across the galaxy. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. An ear-splitting scream pierced the bridge just as a blinding flash filled the viewport. Incoming hit! The port engine, it's gone! Screamed engineering. The Valkyrie tumbled, spiraling out of control. The countdown halted, their planet-shattering payload rendered inert by the critical damage. We're dead in the water! Torres yelled over the cacophony of alarms. A bitter laugh escaped Naves' lips. This is how it ended. Not with a bang, but a crippled whimper, drifting helplessly as the Kavari closed in for the kill. Yet a flicker of defiance remained. Comm still functional? Yes, ma'am, came the surprised reply. One last transmission, Naves ordered. To the Kavari, to their damn leaders. Tell them their hesitation cost them their world. Tell them humanity doesn't just survive. We strike back. With the last of her strength, she raised her chin. And tell them the Valkyrie's fire burns on, even in death. A silence heavy with dread settled over the bridge. The Kavari fleet loomed like a monstrous shadow, blotting out the fading sunlight. Yet the crew of the Valkyrie did not cower. They straightened their backs, eyes fixed upon their attackers with a newfound defiant pride. It was a warrior's pride, born from sacrifice and the knowledge that their actions, however desperate, would resound through history. The first Kavari laser sliced through space, but they were hesitant, cautious. The specter of Admiral Hayes' message lingered. That monstrous device the lone human ship carried. What if the crippled vessel wasn't so helpless after all? What if this was a final, horrifying trap? Comms crackled to life. A guttural, hissing voice filled the bridge. A strange cadence that betrayed a tremor of unease, underlying the Kavari's usual arrogance. Human vessel, identify yourselves and your intentions. Naves choked back a bitter laugh. Intentions? You hear those alarms, monster? She gestured to the flashing lights and damage status flickering across the displays. We're dying. We're ripped apart by your kind. Our intention was to return the favor. Her voice rose, echoing with both fury and fading strength. I am Captain Lynea Naves of the Mothership Valkyrie. My crew dies with me, but our purpose is fulfilled. She forced herself to meet the blinking sensor icons representing the Kavari leader. Your world hangs by a thread. You hesitated, and that hesitation will be your doom. My ship may be broken, but Earth endures. Remember our names, Kavari. Remember the price of your aggression! The comm channel crackled with static and then fell ominously silent. The bridge grew colder with each passing second. Knaves knew their end was seconds away. She would never know the full impact of their actions. The ripples of fear and indecision they'd sown within the Kavari High Command. A blinding flare illuminated the viewports. The Kavari had made their decision. Waves of plasma washed over the Valkyrie, vaporizing its hull. Pain was instantaneous, replaced with a vast nothingness as the lives of the valiant crew flickered out. Yet their deaths were not in vain. As the Valkyrie's signal faded to black somewhere on the blue marble of Earth, Admiral Hayes received the chilling final transmission. The message spread through fleets and commands. On shattered colonies and untouched garden worlds, humanity learned of the impossible gamble, the devastating cost, and the unbending will embedded within the human spirit. The tide was about to turn. News of the Valkyrie's mission rippled through the human sphere like a shockwave. Despair and grief warred with a resurgence of fierce determination. The Kavari had bled them for far too long, stretching their defenses thin, savoring their victories at the edge of human space. No longer. Within secluded think tanks, new strategies were drafted. Old, discarded tactics deemed too reckless or brutal to consider before were re-examined. Shipyards dormant under the strain of dwindling resources roared to life as production shifted to smaller, faster attack vessels. Civilians on countless worlds, pushed to the brink by fear and loss, were galvanized. They had seen the true face of their enemy, and Earth, for the first time in years, became something the Kavari feared. The front lines turned from a desperate retreat to a dogged holding pattern. For every world the Kavari ravaged, there would be a counterattack on an unsuspecting outpost, a hit-and-fade guerrilla maneuver born out of desperation. Humanity, cornered and bloodied, refused to die on its knees. Yet the war was far from won. The Kavari, though shocked, were vast, and their resources far outweighed those of Earth. But their aggression, their absolute confidence in an easy victory had been shattered. For every Kavari battle group that engaged, the phantom of the Valkyrie haunted their command. Within their ranks, the seeds of doubt spread virulently. Could any world, even their core home planet, truly be safe from the insane resolve of the humans? High above the embattled frontier, the newly appointed Admiral Hayes stared out into the cold expanse. The image of the crew of the Valkyrie seared into his mind. They had played their hand, a terrible but necessary gamble. Now it was his turn. The first wave of prototype strike fighters powered up, sleek and deadly. Gone were the grand fleet carriers and lumbering dreadnoughts. The new doctrine was speed, surprise, and a willingness to take the fight back to the Kavari. Hayes' hand rested on the cold metal console, the same surface where a lone monitor had once shown the image of Earth. His knuckles tightened, his mind blazing with cold fury, and the iron determination forged in the fires of sacrifice. "Helm," he spoke, his voice echoing the quiet strategy room. "Chart a course. Deep strike into Kavari territory. Time to repay those bastards in blood." He wouldn't rest until the image of a burning Kavari world mirrored that of so many human colonies lost. The era of retreat was over. The hunters had become the hunted. Years bled into one another, a never-ending cycle of bloodshed and sacrifice. Humanity clung to survival with tooth and nail, trading planets, star systems, and the lives of billions to maintain its grip on the cosmos. They were no longer the peaceful explorers venturing into the unknown. The war with the Kavari had forced them to become something darker, harder. Yet the tide continued to turn. Each daring human strike, each world pushed back from Kavari control, spread whispers of uncertainty among the enemy. The Kavari High Command, once bold and decisive, found themselves locked in a war of attrition they couldn't win. Their tactics were built on overwhelming force, a confidence born from countless easy victories. Facing the unpredictable, ferocious resurgence of humanity, they faltered. Aboard his flagship, the Heart of Fury, Admiral Hayes studied the holograph of the latest combat zone. It resembled a grotesque game board, icons shifting and flickering in a bloody dance. The war had consumed him, the weight of each decision pressing upon his shoulders. He was the symbol of human defiance, a man raised from obscurity by the impossible choices fate had thrust upon him. Incoming transmission, Priority 1, a comms officer interrupted his grim contemplation. It's coded, sir. Marked for your eyes only. Hayes frowned. High-security transmissions in the middle of a campaign didn't bode well. Waving the bridge crew away, he keyed in his authentication code and prepared himself for the worst. Perhaps another frontier colony lost, another strike team wiped out. He'd learned to brace himself for every blow. The transmission flickered to life, but instead of his usual military contacts, a different, older face filled the screen. It was General Pierce, his former mentor, missing from the front lines for several years now. The man looked haggard, shadows beneath his eyes deeper than any Hayes had ever seen. "Admiral," Pierce rasped, his voice laden with both fatigue and urgency that sent a chill down Hayes' spine. "We need to talk. I've uncovered something. Something about the Kavari, why they started this damn war." His eyes, usually steady, were filled with an unnerving mix of fear and desperate hope. Hayes felt his stomach clench. After years of brutal struggle, the question of why had taken a back seat to the desperate need to survive. Yet a seed of curiosity dormant within him stirred. "Continue, General," he said, his voice steady despite the rising tension. "It wasn't expansion. It wasn't some twisted desire for dominance," Pierce began, his image flickering slightly from a secure location light years away. "I found records buried deep in their archives. Old transmissions, fragments of a first contact scenario gone wrong. The Kavari weren't the aggressors at first. Hayes, they were terrified." Hayes stiffened, his tactical mind struggling to process the implications. "Terrified of what, General? Of us?" "A probe," Pierce continued, speaking slowly, each word carrying the weight of a revelation. "Centuries ago, they discovered a derelict human scout ship on the fringe of their territory. But it wasn't just the technology they found. It was the data logs, our long-range scans, expansion plans. They saw a burgeoning empire and panicked." His voice caught, thick with the weight of the revelation. "They saw us as monsters, Hayes. They thought we'd conquer them." Silence fell over the command center, broken only by the soft hum of the ship's systems. Hayes felt the world shifting under him, the simple narrative of good versus evil crumbling. The war machine he'd commanded, the countless lives sacrificed on both sides. Had it all been for a grotesque, spiraling misunderstanding? "Are you certain?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "As certain as I can be. I've spent weeks with their linguists digging deeper. The Kavari, for all their brutality, they're a warrior race, honor-bound. Their initial attacks, they were testing us, looking for that monstrous strength they feared." Pierce explained, his hand running through graying hair in a gesture of helpless frustration. "Our resistance, it only confirmed their worst nightmares." Hayes slumped into his command chair, a wave of exhaustion washing over him. The room spun, the familiar tactical displays blurring as the full impact of the revelation sank in. We could have talked, he muttered, the words catching in his throat. Could have communicated? Maybe, Pierce replied, but there was no optimism in his voice. It's easy to say now, after we've watched planets burn. Who knows how this all could have ended differently? How do we proceed, General? Hayes asked, the image of Captain Knaves and her doomed crew flashing through his mind. Could all of this, all those deaths, have been prevented? I don't know, Pierce admitted. That's why I'm contacting you. Not the politicians. We need a soldier's solution, a way to end this. His words hung heavy in the air. We need to find a way to tell the Kavari we're not who they think we are. A long, contemplative silence filled the command deck. The grand strategy screens flickered with tactical maneuvers, pointless in the face of the devastating truth Pierce had revealed. The Kavari, ruthless and cunning, had acted based on a fatal miscalculation, fear. It was that same fear that now fueled their war machine, the need to prove their strength, to obliterate the imaginary threat posed by humanity. The Kavari won't believe anything broadcast now, Hayes finally said, breaking the tension. Not without proof. Something indisputable. His mind raced, seeking a path through the impossible. They're arrogant, Pierce agreed. Prideful to their core, but not stupid. Their scientists would recognize the evidence. He trailed off, the solution hanging between them, a gamble as desperate as that aboard the Valkyrie, but when focused on peace, not annihilation. We need another Valkyrie, Hayes said, the realization dawning slowly. Another ship, but instead of a weapon, it carries proof, evidence of the original probe, of our intentions. His voice grew stronger as the concept took hold. This wasn't surrender, but an audacious challenge to the Kavari to look beyond their primal terror, to break the cycle of bloodshed. And a messenger. Someone they can't dismiss. Pierce's eyes gleamed with a newfound purpose in the dim light. Someone who commands respect on both sides. Understanding dawned on Hayes. He straightened in his command chair, decisions settling upon him like a heavy cloak. There's only one person, he said grimly. Weeks later, a battered freighter with minimal armaments emerged from hyperspace near the Kavari homeworld. Its very existence was a shock. Human ships hadn't been seen this deep into Kavari territory for years. But the transmission following close behind was the true stunner. This is Admiral Joshua Hayes. I surrender. The message echoed across the Kavari system, not in defeat, but in challenge. Take me to your leaders. Let me show you why you should reconsider this war. Commotion spread through the Kavari fleet like wildfire. It was the act of a madman, or a trap too complex for their strategists to decipher. Yet deep within their command, doubt, that seed Hayes had planted, stirred uneasily. The humans had become an enigma, capable of both unimaginable brutality and unfathomable sacrifice. This new gamble played into those fears with chilling precision. The Kavari had built their power on calculated aggression. Now they faced a choice. Trust in strength, or risk losing everything on a desperate, impossible act of faith. The Kavari flagship Vengeance was a marvel of cold efficiency, a floating testament to the war that had shaped the species. Yet within the sterile confines of the command center, fear prickled at the edges of discipline as the High Command debated their next move. Admiral Hayes' surrender, his insane demand to be taken captive, was an unprecedented violation of everything the Kavari understood about their enemy. The human was a legend among the ranks, a phantom haunting countless battlefields. His image, grainy and defiant, now flickered on the strategy screen, the weight of his challenge pressing against the hardened warriors. His eyes blazing with a mix of weary determination and a warrior's pride defied their attempts to categorize him.
It's a trick,
snarled Supreme Commander Krall, his clawed fist slamming against the command table.
The humans are desperate. They seek to sow discord amongst us.
Perhaps, interjected a younger officer, Chief Strategist Ilara. A ripple of surprise passed through the command staff. Ilara championed aggression, rarely questioning the established doctrine.
But a trick to what end, Supreme Commander? It gains them no tactical advantage, delivers no weapon.
The room fell silent. Humans fought with a terrifying tenacity, but there was a predictable strategy to their strikes. This bordered on madness, a gamble that defied the very logic that had served the Kavari well for centuries.
Admiral Hayes, we accept your surrender. You are requested to attend Flagship Vengeance, where you will be detained.
Hayes took a small shuttle. Docking at the flagship, he was met with a small Kavari defense force and was taken to a small room devoid of any luxuries. The Kavari High Command pondered what to do with Hayes, a thorn in their side for far too long.
The prisoner,
Krall mused, narrowing his reptilian eyes.
If we interrogate him, break him, perhaps it will reveal the human weakness we've overlooked.
Or perhaps into whatever they have planned,
Ilara countered.
He could carry hidden payloads, sleeper commands to activate their agents within our territory.
Her voice trailed off, the possibility hanging unspoken in the air. A deep rumble from the far end of the table drew attention to Chief Scientist Drazak, the eldest among them. His scales had dulled with age, yet his eyes remained sharp.
The human speaks of proof,
he croaked.
His transmission mentioned evidence supporting his claims. Propaganda,
Krall scoffed.
They twist truths and inflate dangers to manipulate their...
He paused, searching for the right word.
Lesser peoples. What value has their evidence? It has value if it breaks the cycle,
Drazak retorted with unexpected force.
We fight ghosts, the original threat, the one in their data logs. They no longer exist. We bleed ourselves upon a fear that may no longer be valid.
The silence that followed was deafening. The Kavari war machine was built on the certainty of their might and the weakness of others. The very concept Drazak presented was a poison, a crack in the foundation that could shatter their resolve. For a terrifying moment, the specter of doubt, the same doubt they had inflicted on humanity, was poised to turn inward. They came to their consensus that Hayes needed to be tested before he would be brought forward to the High Council. They needed to assess his motives and his resolve before they would give him a chance to plead his case. The first few interrogations of Hayes were just to test the water, to see if information changed and if there were any inconsistencies in the stories he was delivering.
His story remains the same. No deviations from the first interrogation,
Krall said through gritted teeth. He'd expected to break Hayes, catch him in a web of lies. But Hayes remained resolute and stuck to the same lines.
Let's hear him out. Find out what he has to offer,
Drazak interjected. Hayes had prepared for the days in which he was held in isolation, his mind working towards avoiding future bloodshed. Both sides brought to their knees. For both sides, it was no longer a war to be won. It was a war not to be lost, and the cost had already been too great. He was greeted by bright lights as he entered the command room, walking onto an occupied raised platform. The Kavari High Command, Hayes guessed.
It is peculiar that the mastermind of an attack which almost cost us our homeworld surrenders. But we offer you the opportunity to speak. Let me be known, however. If your response is inadequate, then your life will be forfeit,
Drazak said, meeting Hayes' gaze. Even the most open-minded Kavari still needed more than words. The probe you found, the messages and information it contained, has been misinterpreted. Hayes started, struggling to find the right words, knowing billions of lives depended on them. We do not come to conquer, to destroy, and to pillage. Our intentions are to collaborate, engage, and thrive in a galaxy we are just finding our feet on. The words starting to flow. Now Hayes knew it was all or nothing. The probe we sent was an invitation of these ideals. War has no winners, and conquerors always meet untimely demises. I offer you, myself, as evidence and proof that humanity is not the bloodthirsty conquerors you deem us to be. Your preemptive attacks were an act of aggression that we had to respond to. Your motives unclear. Drazak now looked on with interest at what Hayes was going to suggest.
Your words are interesting, but you offer nothing,
Kral said with a hint of venom in his voice this time. I will pull back all our forces, stop the raiding and the attacks on Kavari territory. Give us time to prove that we're no threat to you. Not peace, it's too early for peace, but a ceasefire and a trade of dignitaries to build knowledge and information to break down these misconceptions. I am your guarantee that Earth will not break this ceasefire. Give us a chance. Hayes was led back, whilst the High Command deliberated.
A ceasefire gives us opportunity to strengthen. Then we can crush those humans for good.
Kral said, cutting through the silence.
Not like you, Kral. Waiting for your fill of bloodshed.
Alara responded. The council was split, one side favoring war over peace, whilst the other hoped for something more. But both sides could agree that the ceasefire gave them opportunities to either rally their forces or build relations and explore the potential for peace.
So, it is decided. Get Hayes back in here,
Drazak demanded the guards. The wait was not long, Hayes appearing before them once more.
Your ceasefire has been granted, human, but we demand that we have suitable access to study your real intentions, and you will remain as a diplomat.
Hayes had pulled it off. A lifetime of fighting was now close to the end. The ceasefire held. The humans rebuilt once destroyed planets and colonies, and the Kavari did the same. Whilst militaries were restored to their former might, no one took the first move in breaking the ceasefire. Both sides now engaging in the uneasy peace. They started collaborating, communicating, and engaging in trade. Gone were the trading of warheads, now the trading of farm equipment, terraforming devices and supplies. It would take time, generations even, but they were on the path to securing a better galaxy.